before you leave, what were you doing here today?
What was I doing here today? I was up here attending this meeting to try and pull the Dakota people together so our own story would be told accurately, fairly, and on the record. Because our people, our children need to know, my grandchildren need to know where we came from and what good people they came there from.
Exactly, the beautiful way of life.
Yes, exactly.
I've always believed that you have to know where you come from to know where you're going in life. That's what this is all about.
Yeah, in order to be proud of who you are, you need to know where you came from. We came from some doggone good people. And if we don't tell that and let our kids know, because too many of our children living on the reservations now think that that's where we're from. We originated there, and we didn't. We came from up here, in this land of the lakes.
Yeah, I think today, we said, there were a lot of things that you said that really echoed, I think, my own feelings, and there were other people. This was a great meeting. I was really pleased with some of the things that were said. One of the things that we had talked about was that my name is Tamera St. from Sisseton, Wapaton, and I work for the Tribal Historic Preservation Office. And the goal of our office is to not only preserve and protect our history and our cultural sites, but also to maintain or to take control of our cultural history ourselves and to tell our own stories. And so in this, and we've been watching the 1862 project and wanting to be a part of it, but we didn't know how. And it's been an ongoing sort of an issue that it's our homeland, and it's so much a part of our everyday life, and yet it often feels like to our elders that they don't have a voice here. And so I think that this is the first time I think that we've been invited to insert our own words and our own history. And I think sometimes those things happen not because we're not wanted so much as it is that we haven't been assertive enough to be present, and we can't let these things pass us by and not participate and then feel bad that it's not a reflection of ourselves. So generally speaking, people in looking for history will turn to the universities or the historical societies and are not speaking to us. And most of the time that's because those requests for information aren't streamlined directly to us. And by acting as a historical resource through our Tribal Historic Preservation Offices and our THPOs, we're able to address those and to get our voice out there in a lot of different ways. So to have a very active THPO office like you do now, and like the other tribes do, is just phenomenal, because we can present a united front. And one of the things that we had said in there that I thought was absolutely perfect was that not a one of us can tell the story on our own. We need every piece of the story. We all have a different perspective and a section of that story, and we have to put it all together. So by talking to just one fraction of the Tatanka Oyate, or the Great Sioux Nation as it used to be referred to, they're only getting a fraction. And looking at some of the things that would unite us, and the return of our kinship ties and our cultural ways, and to be able to do things that unify us as opposed to divide us. It's easy to divide ourselves into Lakota, Nakota, and Dakota. One of the things that we said, even amongst our own reservation, we can easily divide ourselves into districts, who's from where, or even by families. So instead of following in that line of thinking, we want to focus on the things that show us how close we are. We share those things. We don't have a network or a place to. And it would be, you know, I guess my dream, along with obviously, you know, many others, to develop a central location for a database and a historical resource, such as Wakpa Shita in here, and to be able to combine all of the family histories and the genealogies of the Tatanka.
You know, when you think about the 1862 war and the fact that Minnesota wants to commemorate it, hopefully nobody will celebrate it, but in commemorating it, they forget that we're all outside of Minnesota. There's communities here in Minnesota, but there's no federally recognized Dakota governments, tribal governments. And so they need to keep in mind that we're all over, you know, in 5 states as well as Canada. And, you know, and what she was saying about the genealogy, you know, you look at it, we're all related. That's what that, you know, Midaku Malasi, you know, we're all related, because I can go to every reservation and find relatives.
Yeah.
You know, I've got a lot of relatives on Siston, a lot of relatives at Yankton, a lot of relatives, you know, I've got relatives on Rosebud, Pine Ridge, Crow Creek, you know, you name it, Cheyenne River. You know, and so we if you think about it, you know, we came from one root place and we spread out from there. So I think if we could get that family tree, the base tree, that trunk, and you start peeling off and going off in all these different branches, it's going to be so exciting to see how we all really are related.
You know, not only is it one point that you make that I thought was so well put in there, in being careful of the language that we use, because as far as saying a celebration, I mean, it's very important to know that for us, it is not a celebration. There's nothing to celebrate in it. So commemoration being the ideal. When we talk about such sensitive and very traumatic history, such as Whitestone Hill, the one thing, a good thing in a very bad story was that we were going through that history, all of us together, all of the tribes. And for us all to look at this and look at such a terrible thing and face that and understand that, or feel sad even together, was in itself something that I thought was very powerful and healing. And in this, I mean, as tribes, to go and look at 1862 and look at the reality of what happened, that we will face all of this together. It's like when you grieve, it's good or you lose a relative, it's nice to have all of the family there, and in a way
somebody to share your tears.
Right, exactly.
Peter, what did you think of? You were the one that wanted us down here to record this, because you must have felt there was a lot here.
There was a lot here. I mean, it's a stepping stone to something far greater than we've ever hoped or dreamed that it would be. It's starting from very meager beginnings right now, but I can see it snowballing and bringing us together even more, which is what we're all here for. I mean, it brought me together with a family member who I never met. I know her father well, and her brother Taj St. John, who everybody knows Taj,
right.
World champion fancy dancer, But I've never met Tamera here. And that's what this is all about, is bringing our people together instead of separating us by reservations, districts, like she said. There are many things going on right now across Indian country that are geared towards the same thing that this is doing. One thing that sticks out in my mind, of course, I'm involved with Dakota 38+2 Wool Kingsuye horse ride. We ride from Crow Creek there. We start there December 9th, and we ride 360 miles to the hanging site here in Mankato, nothing here, 10 miles. And that's bringing all the different Dakota bands together every year. There's more and more riders. Santee, the Dakota bands from Canada come down and help us. This year there'll be Dakota bands that people forgot about out in Montana. Wolf Point out there, in that section. They're coming this year also. So there's something beautiful happening across as the world knows us, you know, the Great Sioux Nation. It's happening, and it's always been a dream of mine to be, you know, and I think it's going to happen in my lifetime, and I hope it does.
That, you know, we and our warriors that have been there forever, always ready to defend this land, you know, in First World War, they were drafted, and they went in as others. You know, they were Caucasians.
We weren't even members yet.
We weren't
even citizens
no.
yet.
That's right.
But right up until this time, First World War, Second World War, Korean conflict, Vietnam War, Panama, Afghans are still going and protecting us.
At a very high rate.
Very, very, of all the ethnic groups, American Indians volunteer in higher percentages than any other people in this country. And, you know, and I know I'm very proud of the warriors in my family. All my brothers, my 2 sons, my uncles, my aunts, my sister, you know. And you just think about all of the rest of the tribal membership, you know, your family, you know. We have some highly decorated veterans.
Yeah,
And it reminded me by seeing that Vietnam veteran shirt you have on, Lyle.
You had mentioned that, and I didn't know this, as far as a relative of ours.
Yes. In about 2 weeks, I'll be going to Washington, D.C. to accept the medal from the President on behalf of my grandfather, Edmund St. John, who was a code talker in World War II.
I wish.
Wow.
Let me shake your hand. My uncle Guy Rondell was
Yeah.
one of them.
Really?
Yes, from the
And
Sisseton
I was
tribe.
just, a couple months ago, I was asked to do something that I thought I'd never see. I was asked to come to Washington, D.C. and place a wreath on the Tomb of the Unknown Soldiers.
Fantastic.
So I went out there and I represented, in veterans, I represented the Crow Creek Sioux tribe, and I represented the Dakota, Lakota, Nakota Nation. You know, those might be across the Sioux Nation here. There's over 2,000 missing in action. You know, Sioux warriors, and that could be
Really?
them
I
laying-
didn't know that number.
That could be them laying in those tombs.
Oh, yeah.
So on their behalf, I was asked to come out and place that wreath there. And we did it right after the Vice President did his. Of course, they don't show that on
The
TV.
return to our homelands also is a return to our burial sites
Yes.
of our ancestors. And you know, ideally, when something happens with these things, or if they're in danger, or if there's knowledge that needs to be known, that they be able to access us so that we can know or to be consulted. Even, of course, the Tribal Historic Preservation Offices work with Section 106, and it's very vital. One of the gentlemen had said about, you know, the ceremonial sites, the places that we had formerly used for ceremony. At Whitestone Hill, you know, immediately the first thing that our elders did there when they had access finally back to that site was to pray and to have ceremony and to remember those that had obviously they were murdered and killed there. Here that you know, that we are a direct result of everything of them. Their every effort to survive. We are you know, us just existing speaks to their ability to survive, and you know, we need to remember them, whether it be the burial mounds themselves, or whether it be even just the grave sites. I know I have ancestors that had buried one of my great-great-great-great-grandmothers, and we know about where, along Graceville. And so, you know, when I read in the paper about unearthing remains, you know, it's not an artifact. It's not a, you know, it's family. And there was the descendant of Big Eagle here. There's descendants of Wabasha. There's descendants of, and it goes on and on and on.
Red
so yeah, Red Wing.
Descendants of the 38 that were named.
Exactly.
That's right.
And you know, on that list of 38, number 39 was a guy by the name of Maza Adidi, my great-grandfather. You know, and so I always feel like, you know, I was, you know, for some reason we were blessed. He was blessed. for us to even be here.
You know, and those stories, they exist. You know, there are people that we may not know. In my family, actually in the St. John side of my family, we know that there were two individuals that were held that day that were members of our family, and the grandmother used to cry. They say used to cry every Christmas and say that they had died there, that they had been killed there, and they used to say that the youngest one there was our relative, and the youngest one was I think they say tate kake. You know, windmaker. There's stories that go along with that, and I may not, even with a huge focus on genealogy, be able to trace back to that individual, but yet at the same time, I know them and know, and that's just me and my family. There's so much.
Like Miss St. John here, I just met her. I think what she does is one of the most important roles in Indian country. Our young people today, they are struggling with an identity crisis. They don't know who they are. They don't know where they come from. They're identifying with African American race, Spanish Americans. What she is doing is just incredible. She is making this known to us. She's bringing this history, this family ties back to us. And I commend you for that.
How long have you been working in that capacity?
Probably well over 10 years, and it really starts with just grandparents and wanting to know. I used to help take care of my grandparents. My grandmother was developing Alzheimer's, so I'm wanting to identify photos and visiting with them. It just began to snowball. I would try to document or find, documentation. We live in an age of technology where I would find something that, my grandfather was talking about, and it went back, and it went further back, and then it went into 1862, and then it went into, and then mapping on out. That's why I really believe that in this project to include genealogy is going to provide that sort of a route, and it'll encompass all of the different tribes, and as we note all of the families. So
which is healing to us.
Exactly.
Very much so.
From that historic trauma.
Talk a little bit how you compare Crow Creek. I mean, this was kind of a main. I mean, really a main where after Minesota was taken out. So, and you're Santee, so both of you together are the two principal. I mean, not to leave Sisseton out here, but
though. We say that at Sisseton as well.
So what does that make you two feel like?
We're home.
Well, I don't know if you remember, Lyle, but at that one, the meeting up in Winona, I don't know if you remember when I got up and talked and I said that I wish I had brought a Santee Sioux Nation flag. I would have climbed those bluffs and I would have reclaimed that in the name of the Santee Sioux Nation. Because it really is home. By rights, because, you get a really good feeling about coming back here, and you don't even know why sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. It's a feeling of coming home.
Yeah. And all of a sudden I find myself singing. And whether, and so, I really enjoy coming to Minesota. I really do, even with all the conflicting feelings. But, Lyle, I need to say this. I worry so much about what's happening in Indian country. And then I look at young people like these two, and I see some of my nephews, and I know we're leaving this in good hands, because I'm one of the tribal elders. I'm going to go ahead and say my next birthday, I'm going to be 68 years old. And so I'm going to be running out of energy. And so to see these young people like this, coming up and just being so brilliant, and so dedicated to what they're doing, it just does my heart.
Yeah, it does mine too. And